My name is Julie Barlow. I chose the creative option for the Bartleby project. And I actually chose to go from the point of view of Mr. Cutlets, the private chef that is paid to feed Bartleby while he's at the prison. So I decided to use research and information about New York City prisons during the 1850s to kind of imagine what Bartleby's last days, starving himself, from Mr. Cutlets' eyes might have looked like. Mr. Cutlets provides a new perspective into Bartleby's time in the prison while the narrator was not present, and it also provides insight on what the Tombs was like during this time, the other prisoners that he interacted with, as well as what kind of food he might have been turning down that he didn't prefer to eat, which is, in the end, what actually killed Bartleby, was his self-starvation. So for this project, I found accurate sources about cuisine, about the different slang during this time, and the prison system of the 1850s, and the history of New York City itself. I found it pretty interesting to research the food options and what was considered fine dining during this time, because it's not too far off from what we like today. During this time, it also was kind of becoming popularized to have Chinese cuisine, which I found very interesting because it was a little bit later than the 1850s that it really blew up, but since then it's still been a very popular cuisine in America. So some of the different types of foods that I imagined Mr. Cutlets might have offered to not only Bartleby but the other prisoners that he might have interacted with. I thought maybe about Delmonico steak and mashed potatoes from the Delmonico restaurant that opened around this time. Eggs Benedict. There was a lot of French cuisine that was popular during this time. Like I said, Chinese cuisine, and of course seafood, oysters, lobster, anything that you might find on the East Coast, and especially New York. I chose Mr. Cutlets rather than any of the other employees because I thought he provided a lot of different insight, because while the lawyer and the lawyer's employees were predominantly in the beginning of the story, Mr. Cutlets is kind of the only voice that we see that interacted with Bartleby during the latter half of the story. So he had tended to Bartleby during his last days alive, and I did kind of imagine that he got frustrated with Bartleby. You can kind of tell by his tone at the end. He says, is he going to dine today or does he live without dining? Because his livelihood is feeding these people, and I'm sure it's pretty rare that these prisoners turn down a warm home-cooked meal like this. So, to recap, I chose the perspective of Mr. Cutlets, the private chef at the Tombs, to kind of get more of a view of what Bartleby's last days might have looked like as he starved himself, instead of eating the nice meals that were provided for him, as well as to kind of show what the prison system looked like and the prisoners, the different gang members of like the 5-point gangs and everybody that was in the prison during this time in New York City in the 1850s. And though Mr. Cutlets didn't actually see Bartleby's death, he and the turnkeys were the only people that interacted with him toward the end of his life, because the lawyer came in right after he had died. So using research about popular cuisine and the prison system, the different inmates of this time in New York City in the 1850s, we can kind of surmise what this experience might have looked like through the private chef's eyes.